Hello everyone, welcome back to Bookish Realm. Welcome if you are new here. We are here to do another weekly wrap up, and I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm gonna be a little bit all over the place with this one, simply because of the fact that this week has been a week specially made for me, catered from the pits of HE double hockey sticks, because I don't know, I have no idea. But even as I am filming this video, I ran over, like, I don't know whether it's like a hook or a nail, or I don't know what it was, y'all, but my tire essentially went flat. And so this week has just been, it's been a trial. It really has been a trial. And so I have not read this much this week as I have in past weeks. I read, and when I say I haven't read that much, some of y'all are probably going to be like, but you read a lot. Still, I did make it through a lot, but I didn't make it through half of the things that I wanted to make it through, because this week has just not been, it has not been my week, and that is okay. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. This is not going to be in any particular order. I actually only have one picture book to talk about. I have a whole stack of picture books sitting in front of me. I have picture books upstairs that I need to make it through, but I have not had the opportunity to sit down and read them. So the only one that I ended up reading of note for y'all is going to be Elijah's Easter Suit. Remember that at the end of this month, probably when this goes up, it'll be the Saturday of the week that this goes up, that the picture book vlog, or not vlog, or maybe it'll go up the following week. I haven't decided yet. We'll figure that out, but it will be coming soon. So if you are looking for those recommendations, my specific thoughts, be sure to check out that video. I also only ended up reading one graphic novel this week, which was Bertle and the Purple Turtles. It was super cute, but I will be talking about that in my final wrap up for the Realm of Comics channel. So if you did not know, also, I always like to say at the beginning of these videos that I do have a comic graphic novel and manga channel that is completely separate from this. So if you're looking for those specific reviews, you can go ahead and check that channel out. It's called the Realm of Comics. And yeah, I think that's the only one that I ended up making it through. I read some of another one, and I read some of multiple things, but that is the only one that I finished. So yeah. While we're already here, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, go ahead and click that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. And if you are looking for ways to support the channel, definitely check out my Patreon, as well as my Amazon wishlist that is linked down below. So, alright, let's jump into what I ended up finishing. The first thing that I know I did finish this week, because now I'm trying to figure out Scramble, what order did I finish this stuff in this week? And I have a big idea of what the order is. So we're going to be talking primarily about 4 books today. There's 4 books that I finished this past week. The first one being Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Now, I talked a little bit about this one last week, because I was about maybe just probably shy of 100 pages from finishing it last week, but I didn't want to rush and try to finish to include it in that video. I do not have the physical copy with me anymore, because I went ahead and returned it to the library because someone was waiting for it. But this is the first book in the Maple Hill series. The third book comes out this summer. This series has made waves through TikTok. And just out of curiosity, I think that for some reason this year I've been reading things just purely out of curiosity, just wanting to understand the hype behind certain things, and this was one of those. Now, this romance is over 400 pages. It is just a few pages shy of being 450 pages. I don't think I've ever read a contemporary romance this long, and that is definitely going to be one of my hiccups. So in this book, we are following 2 main characters, Anastasia and Nate. So they are attending University of California, I believe, but it's the Maple Hills location. not really important here. What's most important is that Anastasia is a ice skater and Nate is a hockey player, and the two of them don't really know each other prior to the beginning of this book. As a matter of fact, in the beginning of this book, Anastasia has a friends with benefits type of situation with another character. So what ends up happening is the ice rink gets vandalized. They have two ice rinks. One of them gets vandalized, and it is from another hockey team. I won't tell you the reasons why because it is a spoiler, but they end up having to share the rink, and Anastasia has a partner that she is working hard with because they are competing to make it to like pairs in the US Olympics, or make Team USA to make it to the Olympics. And Nate is the captain of the hockey team that's there, and he is supposed to be going pro after he graduates. So he's a senior, and I believe that she's a junior, somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken. And the two end up having to encounter each other because of the fact that they have to share the rink, which Anastasia clearly is not happy about. Nate is a little bit more along the lines of like, okay, yeah, you know, let's just try to make this work. And he tries to befriend her, but Anastasia is kind of like, yeah, no, I don't want to get to know you. You're the reason why we have to share this rink, and I'm really upset. And so the course of the novel, we really are just spending a lot of time getting to know them as individual characters, and they are essentially getting to know each other. And it's a bumpy ride because Nate is known as a playboy. Anastasia is very much so focused in on her dream and her goals. She's very, very organized, planner type. And so she doesn't feel like she has time to get to know someone in a romantic way, which is why she has that friends with benefits type of situation. Let's start off with the positives of this book. I thought that there were cute moments in this relationship. There really were. I really liked that Nate learned how to be patient and learned that she's very hesitant on starting a romantic relationship with anyone. And although it was difficult for him, I think he processed it well, in the sense that he got to know her and he respected her boundaries and her space. He's a very caring and attentive hero, and he's very much so into the business of building Anastasia up. She has a lot of insecurities, and a lot of that comes from her partner. Her partner is a whole piece of work, and I'm going to get into that in one of my quirks with Anastasia that makes it so difficult. But I like that Nate was there to kind of build her up, especially because she was dealing with so much negative energy from her partner, and he literally, I mean, tears her down. I mean, completely tears her down. So there's a lot of content warnings for body shaming. I feel like he's verbally abusive and emotionally abusive. And on Nate's side, Nate is dealing with grieving the death of his mother, and then also dealing with a kind of absent parent who is very hyper fixated on success of his business and getting his children to take over his business instead of really being in tune with like what they want as individuals. So be mindful of those content warnings. Like I said, I think that there were certain aspects of the relationship that I found to be like cute and charming. I loved the other hockey players and how much they loved her. So yes, it is a relationship between Nate and Anastasia, but there comes a point where the other hockey players like really, really love her like as a friend, and they care about her and they're attentive and they support her just as much as Nate does. And I really, really like that as well. One character in particular, Henry, was like everything. Henry is, I can't wait to get, and that's probably why I will continue on with this series, to be honest with you, is because a lot of the side characters were really, really amazing in terms of their character development, the way that they treated Anastasia, the way that they had a relationship with Nate. She did a very good job. Hannah Grace did a very, very good job building up these side characters, which in some ways is what keeps the novel going, which is one of my biggest hiccups with this. This book is entirely too long, okay? There's not enough conflict for this book to go on for 450 pages. 100 pages of this could have been shaved off easily. There is no need for this book to be this long. They have conflict, don't get me wrong. there's conflict, and there's conflict with Anastasia and her partner, and I have completely wiped this boy's name out of my mind intentionally, but it doesn't warrant 450 pages. I'm telling y'all, it doesn't warrant it, because there were certain parts in the book where it starts to really slow down. And when I say slow down, I mean there's points where you're like, oh my gosh, this book is still going on. What is there left for us to cover? There was just ways that Hannah Grace could have easily wrapped this book up, but she kept it dragging on to a point where it just became unbearable in some sections. So I think that the conflict with the partner is what really bothered me, because I think that everyone around Anastasia was telling her there's something wrong with him. He's not a good person. He's obsessed with you. He's controlling. He's demeaning. He's vulgar. And it was the things that he would say that would just have my jaw unhinged and on the floor. It's certain things that he would say where I would want to throw hands on her behalf. And Anastasia couldn't see that. And I think that that is part of the nature of being in a toxic and or abusive relationship, is that often it becomes so ingrained in the individual that it's normal, that they can't see what everyone else is seeing. But I think it was so much of Anastasia just trying to work things out. When Nate was telling her best friend was telling her, like, leave this kid alone. It's time to just let it go. And it just she just couldn't get it. And so that ended up dragging out for so long until her hand was pretty much forced. And she couldn't inevitably, like, deal with it anymore, because he crossed the line that was extremely inappropriate in front of hundreds of people and made her extremely uncomfortable. And so that, I think, is the biggest conflict in the book. But I think there were perfect opportunities to kind of do away with that situation and focus on the romance between the two characters and wrap the book up. Because we dragged that situation out so long, this book ends up being just, it's a drag. It's a drag in some sections, because there is no conflict really between the two of them. And it's not like there's no conflict, but what I did like, and going back to what I did like, they had good communication. And a lot of that has to do with because Anastasia spent such a great amount of time in therapy that she knows how to have an emotionally intelligent conversation with Nate. Even when he's kind of like going off the rails, she's able to kind of pull the conversation back in. So they don't have conflicts in the sense that we would see in some romances where they have a third act breakup and they have to find their way back to each other. No, that's not the case. It literally is them having, I think, what we would consider to be typical disagreements in a relationship, and being able to effectively communicate with each other, which is great. But it also goes back to the point of, why was this book 450 pages long? Because we have a healthy relationship. They don't have much conflict. There is a point in which Nate has to support her in a way that he doesn't expect, but he steps in. And I think that if we would have veered it in a different direction, where she becomes independent more quickly, this book wouldn't have had to drag on that long. But because we wanted to keep up the narrative with her and this partner, and Anastasia not feeling like she can make it to the Olympics without the partner, it just was so long. but it was a quick read. That's the thing about it, is that it's so long, but it's very easily digestible. It's not a complicated read, and so that's why it didn't really take me long to end up finishing the book. But also, with that being said, I'm just like, yeah, this is a lot. I think that if you're not into kind of the college age romance, because this is a college romance, this is kind of it's not enemies, because I don't feel like they're enemies, but they're kind of like a strong dislike to friends, to lovers type of situation. This probably won't be for you. I know a couple people who've picked this book up and they're like, yeah, just the way that they communicate with each other is just not my thing. And it is because they are college age kids, and it's college age drama and partying and stuff like that. So if that's not your jam, I don't think this book will be your jam. I am probably going to give this 3 stars because I haven't written my review for it on Goodreads yet. But I think I'm going to go with 3 stars because it wasn't horrible enough for me to drop it down to 2.5. But it wasn't good enough for me to give it above 3. It was a solid book. I can't say that I didn't enjoy it. But I don't think that the conflict warranted this book being as long. That is probably my biggest gripe with this book, is the ice skating partner, Anastasia's partner, and then how long this book was. It was obscene on how long it was. And like I said, I didn't dislike it, but it also isn't a favorite. I don't know, even with the character focus for book number 2, which it wasn't that I don't care for this character, because I liked a lot of the side characters, which could potentially be an issue as well, that if you like side characters more than the main characters, that's an issue. And I found myself gravitating to a lot of the side characters as opposed to the main characters, but I wasn't really interested in the character that's going to be the main focus of the second book. Now, the third book is about Henry, and when I tell y'all I am in love with Henry as a character, I'm in love with Henry as a character. And so I'm excited to read the third book, but I feel like in order to have better context of everything, I need to read book 2. And I heard book 2 is not as strong necessarily as book 1, which is saying a lot considering that I personally was not the biggest fan of book 1. I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening. I mean, it's interesting what makes, I always find this to be interesting, and like what makes, I guess, the popular train, what gets the most hype. I'm always fascinated by this, but yeah, not the best read of the year, but also not the worst. So after finishing that one, I did end up reading Foxglove, which is the second book in the Belladonna series. Wisteria comes out in August of this year, and I must say, another solid young adult fantasy. I'm very shocked because Belladonna gets a lot of hype on social media, and I read it a couple of weeks ago, and I gave it 4 stars, and I was like, okay, I immediately put Foxglove on hold, and I was like, hopefully this is as good as a as a read as Belladonna. And I really did enjoy Foxglove. It's not really much that I can say about Foxglove because of the fact that it is the sequel, and everything that happens in Foxglove is coming off of what happens at the end of Belladonna. I will say that I love the introduction of a new character that is closely connected to death. I really like that. I really like that we got another perspective. I'm not going to say who the perspective is because I do think that that is a spoiler. But this one was another one where it's a slow burn mystery. And I think that that's what I couldn't figure out with the first one, why it felt so slow in some sections. It's a fantasy, but I do think that the mysterious part of it is what is the fixation of this series as a whole. And it is a slow burn. It is a very slow burn mystery. I would not dive into the series expecting something that is fast paced, high action. There are high action or high tension, high stakes moments, but that's not what this book is about. It heavily focuses on character development, character dynamics, and relationships amongst our core group here, as well as some side characters. And the mystery is the biggest element. And so there was a huge event that happens at the end of Belladonna that we are trying to figure out in this one. And in order to figure out what happened at the end of Belladonna, there are some new players in this one. And when I tell you these new players are a trip and a half, I genuinely mean a trip and a half. And there was a huge reveal at the end in relationship to a character as well as death, and a close relative of death, because that's all I'm gonna say. There was a revelation at the end of this where I was like, oh shoot, because you are thinking that this revelation is tied to Cigna, but it's not tied to Cigna in some ways, and I'm trying to tiptoe around it. But you originally think that it is tied to her, but there's some explanations that happen over the course of the novel which leads it in a completely different direction, which I was not anticipating, because I thought that Cigna was this person, this thing that was happening, and it actually was not her. I like the slower aspects of it. I think because I knew that this series was one that was more of a slow burn, and the pacing was not as quick as I was anticipating with Belladonna, I was okay with that. So I really took my time. I appreciated the slowness of this. I appreciated the character development and how the story slowly unfolded. And because of the reveal that we got at the end of this one, I am very much so excited to see what is going to happen in the third book, which is going to be Wisteria. Good series, y'all. Like, this is one that has gotten so much hype, and I'm like, actually, I kind of vibe. I get it. I kind of vibe with the hype on this one. And it's definitely not a series for everyone. I will say that. It really is not a series for everyone. But if you like slow burn mysteries, if you like this, because it is kind of like a loose retelling of The Death of the Maiden. And if you're into stuff like that, that darker element there, then I think that you would appreciate the series as a whole, and the plants and how they play a role, and oh gosh, I really liked it. So I gave Foxglove 4 stars. After finishing up Foxglove, I ended up reading Slugfest by Gordon Corman. This is his newest middle grade, and I have been a fan of Gordon Corman. Masterminds is probably his favorite, or is probably my favorite series that he's written, but I decided to try out Slugfest, which Masterminds is more sci-fi, and so this one is more realistic fiction, so I was wondering how I was going to vibe with it, and it actually worked out. We're following a main character who plays football. He's very good at football, and he ends up he's training with the JV team, and so he ends up not getting his credit for PE, and according to the Board of Education in the state, he has to get that PE credit before he's able to graduate middle school and go to high school. And so he's stuck going to summer school for PE. What I did like about this is that this is not just told from his perspective. There are several other characters that we follow, and these characters are also all enrolled in summer school one way or the other, but they're all in this gym class. So some of them are taking multiple classes. Like, we have one main character, she's taking multiple classes because she got injured, her foot got injured, and so she's having to really play catch up in order to graduate and make it to high school in the fall. So she's taking more than just this gym class, but the main kind of idea is that all of these kids are stuck together in this gym class, and they end up getting this teacher who conducts gym class in a way that's very not typical for a gym class. She has them doing interesting things like games and activities like Duck Duck Goose, but in a way that gets their bodies moving, but they don't have the ability to understand, like, why are we doing this? Like, how is this connected to gym? And so we end up diving into this entire mystery where they're trying to figure out whether she's actually an accredited teacher or not. And if she's not an accredited teacher, then none of them will get their gym credit. And of course, with our main character, he is very nervous about that because he wants to make it to high school. That way, as a freshman, he can play on the JV team, which is not that it's not unheard of, but he's a very good, very good player, and I believe he is the quarterback. So major position, major role, and he wants to make sure that he's able to continue to play. And he's struggling a lot because of the fact that he is missing out on training time with the rest of the team, and there are potential individuals that may end up taking his spot because he's not there to kind of show his capabilities and show that he is moving forward and able to train. I think that this one was really fast paced. I love that it was told from multiple perspectives because we're dealing with so many different kids, and each one of them brings a different story to the table. And I think that it really connects with the reason why the teacher conducts gym class the way that she does, which I think was really smart on Gordon Corman's part, to show us these individual characters, show their relationship to gym and physical activity, and then connect it back to why this teacher is saying, okay, this is why I am doing gym class this way. You've never seen gym conducted this way, but this is why. And I think it's about friendship, especially, middle school is a tough time. I always say that. I think middle school is like just the toughest period for kids in general, because it's a lot of transitions going on, a lot of friendship groups being built, cliques being built that often kind of, you know, translate into experiences in high school. And so we have these stereotypical roles that Gordon Corman plays with, like the jock, the brainiac, you know, the one that's kind of precocious and a know-it-all, like just those typical ideas that we have whenever we think middle school and high school, and he completely just flips them on top of their head. And these kids go into this class with these preconceived notions of each other because they've already started pocketing themselves off into these cliques, and because they are all in this gym class, it kind of levels the playing field where they learn to connect with each other. They learn to support each other, to put their differences aside, and to really get to know each other underneath the surface, which is, I think, a key thing for middle school kids, is that, you know, we can perceive someone to be the jock, we can perceive someone to be the brainiac, or someone to be, you know, the homecoming queen, those labels that we give, but everybody brings so much more to the table, and he does an excellent job of showcasing what each one of them brings to the table, and how each one of their personalities and abilities and gifts and dreams and ambitions will play into them becoming literally a team, which I don't want to get into that because it's kind of a spoiler. But I really did like this one. I love the different voices of each one of these characters. They're very distinct, which is a harder task to complete than I think we give some authors credit for, because if you're writing multiple main characters, especially when it's outside of a dual POV, when you start throwing 3, 4, 5 different perspectives in there, each one of these characters has to have a distinct voice. I need to know what characters I'm dealing with at all times. And that's especially important too when you're listening to something on audiobook and you don't have the book physically in front of you. But Gordon Corman does such a great job with character development that I was never confused on who was who. It was, as soon as a character switched, I knew exactly who it was, because he did such a great job defining them as individuals that by the time we were switching perspectives, like every chapter or so, it was no confusion on whose perspective I was reading from at that point. So once again, Gordon Corman, chef's kiss. He's one of the greatest to ever do it for me in terms of middle grade authors. And I ended up giving that one 4 stars. Last one that I ended up reading was Shut Up, This Is Serious. Woo! This was an emotional read. Now, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. But this is an emotional read. There are a lot of content warnings for this one, especially for body shaming, parental abandonment. There are some comments that are made that just kind of broke my heart. Like, oh my goodness gracious, there's conversations about racism and colorism, and woo. I don't know what I was anticipating when I picked this one up, but this was not it. So Shut Up, This Is Serious is a YA contemporary / realistic fiction book. We are focusing on a main character by the name of Baylin, and it is told through her perspective. Her best friend has gotten pregnant, and one of the major conflicts that we see at the beginning of this book is not only has her best friend gotten pregnant, but her best friend's partner is Black. And she comes from a family that is not only colorist, but has some feelings about Black people. And it is a struggle and a half where she is having difficulty being able to communicate who the father of her child is. And so Baylin is there to support her, but she ends up having to deal with her own issues at the same time. So for her, her father packed up and pretty much just left. He decided that he didn't want to have anything else to do with the family, and so she's really, really struggling with that. At the same time, she feels like her mother is also absent. She's kind of just never there, and when she's physically there, she's not mentally and emotionally present, and she's struggling with that. So she feels like she's alone. She has a sibling that tries to support the best way, but I think every one of them is dealing with that feeling of absence and this idea that the father just kind of said, screw all of you, like I'm not gonna I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be a part of this family. And it is difficult for each and every one of them. As we go through the course of the novel, though, we see Baylin kind of just stop with school. That's the best way I know how to describe it. She is done. She does not do any work. She's at risk of not graduating. And it's kind of ironic because I think she's trying to support her best friend in this way that she feels as though her best friend's life is falling apart. But in a lot of ways, her best friend has it together, in which she's still trying to make sure she gets to university. She is trying to work things out with the father of her child. She's trying to figure out the best way to support, or trying to figure out the best way to get her family on board with, you know, her having a child. And I think what was interesting for me is Baylin kind of sees her as I don't think she sees her as a failure, but she sees her as someone that needs a lot of support when she herself needs support. She has support, but I think she's just so into her head and into her feelings about her father that she doesn't realize that she also needs help. And I think she sees herself in a way of having more maturity than her best friend, but really they're on the same playing field. They're just dealing with different issues. So we watch her basically go through a lot. This is, I mean, definitely coming of age story. She gets linked up with this college kid and her best friend's kind of like, don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. It's not worth it. I want you to be smarter than me. I want you, you know, when you decide that you're ready to have sex, I want you to make sure you're using protection. I want you to make sure you're on birth control. Like, don't make the same mistake I made, which is where I say you kind of see these roles shift where Baylin at the beginning makes it seem as though her best friend needs her more, but these roles alter where her best friend's like, I did this, I made this mistake because I didn't do this and I didn't do that, but I need you to do things in a different way. And not in a mistake in that she would not appreciate or love or care for her child, but to be pregnant and to be in high school, still trying to go to college and trying to figure out how to manage that, that's a heavy plate to have. That's a heavy burden to carry, and she doesn't want Baylin to make the same mistakes as her. And inevitably, she goes through some ups and downs and learns some hard lessons that really, really, really hurt me to my core. And I think the reason why it hurt me to my core is simply because of the fact that the relationship dynamic between her and this college guy is some things that I think I kind of dealt with myself going through high school, going through college, and not really being able to decipher who actively cares about you, appreciates you, loves you, sees you, as opposed to those who only see you as a body. And she gets comments on her body all the freaking time, which goes to this whole idea of hypersexualization of Black and brown girls based on the way that their bodies are shaped. And it's ridiculous because her best friend's mother constantly is telling her, don't mess with Baylin because, you know, she's probably fast, and look at her body, like, you know, these are the type of girls who do inappropriate things. And it's like, but at this time she was a virgin and she can't help the way that her body is shaped. Like, she can't, if she's thicker in the hips or wider in the hips and is developed differently, that's not anything that she can change. And so I love that the author kind of delved into this whole issue with how Black and brown girls are hypersexualized based on their development, that they're seen as older, that they're judged in ways that they shouldn't be judged, that they are automatically assumed to be more experienced in sex because of the way that their body looks. And so we have the best friend's mother kind of perpetuating this idea onto Baylin, and it is, oof. It is rough. There's great conversations about colorism, and that starts very, very early on in the novel, talking about how her best friend's mother will wish that, you know, she has a lighter skin. She doesn't want her to be dark, and there is a lot of colorism that does exist in a Latina community, and it exists in the Black community as well, but I always have a strong interest in understanding colorism as it impacts other communities, because I can understand it in the Black community, but that doesn't mean that the conversations and experiences are the same in other communities. But strong conversations about colorism, strong conversations about discrimination and prejudice that happens between marginalized communities. I think that people often assume that because a person is a part of a marginalized community, or they are a part of a BIPOC community, that they cannot be racist towards another BIPOC community, and that's not true. And we definitely see that with the best friend's partner. He is Black, and let me tell you, the parents are not happy about that, and it takes a while for it to even come out that he is in fact Black, because of the dangers that the best friend faces in her household. And the best friend is in a very toxic household with a mother who says those things, and then a father who is essentially verbally, emotionally, and on the cusp of being physically abusive. So there's a lot in this book. This was a very, very heavy and emotional book, and it is a slow coming of age story. So this is not one where it's like, oh, action, 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 which I think this week has been the week of me reading a lot of slow coming of age books, and not slow coming of age, but slow burning books, and not necessarily like the most action packed things. But I think that the character development, the whole idea of this being a coming of age story, the writing in this one was very, very well done. I really, really liked it. There was this emotional punch that they were able to craft within the story with these words that just absolutely blew my mind away, and continues to blow my mind away post reading this book. It was good, y'all. It was really, really good. My heart goes out to these characters, because they was tugging at my heartstrings this entire time. Both of the girls, really, even though we only get the story primarily through Baileen's perspective, I think that it was an emotional read, and I appreciate it, and I gave that one 4 stars. Unfortunately, y'all, I still have not found a 5-star read. I'm gonna find my 5-star read, but it was not today, not this week again. I don't think I have a 5-star book coming out of January, which I don't know what that's gonna say for the rest of my reading year, but that is a-okay. We still have a few days left, and so with that being said, I'm going to jump into what I'm currently reading. I am currently reading another popular Booktok romance, and that is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. So many people talk about Abby Jimenez. A lot of people talk about this book. I'm 193 pages in, which is, I think, close to halfway through this one. It's another quick read. Listen, Alexis, so this is told in dual perspective, and it follows 2 characters, Alexis and Daniel, and they meet after Alexis has some issues with her car on the side of the road, and he helps her out, and she ends up going to this place. It's a small town that, you know, I mean, literally a small town. Actually, it was funny because at one point Daniel was like, we actually don't even have enough of a population to be considered a town. So, like, I think they're considered a village, like, because of the size of their town. So they end up going to this only open spot because she was hungry, and then they end up connecting from there. But she's in the midst of going through a breakup with her partner. She's not a med student. I was gonna say she's a med student. She's a doctor, and she comes from this long line of doctors with her parents and her parents' parents and all that are known for working specifically at this hospital. And it's rough. It's really, really rough. And so she finds solace in Daniel, but she is not willing to commit to a relationship with Daniel, which I find to be very, very interesting. Whatever. Alexis annoys me. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Alexis is annoying, and honestly, there are some parts with the way she treats Daniel where I'm just like, I would have been cut her off. I understand she's going through a lot, but there's some scenes where I didn't like where she treated Daniel. Daniel is the reason why I'm still reading this book, because he's a cinnamon roll hero, and I haven't read a lot of romances where we have a cinnamon roll hero, and he's just completely and utterly perfect. And I really, really do adore him as a character. So the goal this week is to finish this one up, because I just need to finish it up. I also want to finish up The Selkie's Daughter. I haven't made any progress in this one, or I read a little, no, I haven't made any progress. I haven't made any progress since the last time that I updated y'all. I'm still on chapter 8, which is about 50 pages into this. This is a quick read. Hopefully when I get my car fixed, I'll sit down and read that one while I'm waiting, because you know how people go, like how much how long it takes to get your car fixed. It's always great. And then I have 2 mangas that I'm looking forward to finishing this week as well. If I hold that one up right. I Want to Be a Wall, which I actually made it halfway through. And then Delicious in Dungeon, and that's because both of these are due back at the library and I need to finish them. In terms of audiobooks, I am currently reading Holiday Country. This is by a Turkish American author that's drawing on her experience of spending her summers in Turkey with her family. And it's kind of that like whole idea of not being American enough, not being Turkish enough, and like being in the middle, that type of situation. So there's that. This one's really, really slow. It's interesting because it's this guy that her mother potentially had a relationship with in the past, or was attempting to have a relationship with, something along those lines, and then things kind of falter and they meet this guy again when they're spending the summer in Turkey, and the daughter finds that she kind of has an attraction to this guy. I don't know where that's going to go, to be honest with you. I really don't. I have not done what I needed to do for the Rick Riordan and Rick Riordan Present stuff. I was supposed to read Arusha and the Tree of Wishes this week. Unfortunately, I did not get to it. I'm hoping to get to it this week because I really need to be finished with all of this stuff. And this week really like threw me off of my pacing. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. This week's chaos kind of threw me off of my pacing. I also probably will end up reading and finishing River East, River West. That's another adult new release. And then the other audiobook that I'm hoping to finish this week is, what's the next one in terms of due date? So I have started listening to my stuff in terms of due date. And the next one is going to be The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, which I do need to finish because I promised Ray that I was going to finish The Gilded Ones and The Merciless Ones before the 3rd book dropped. And I have yet to do any of that. So we're going to hopefully get that because that has Holt on it as well. I also started listening to the most random thing, and I'm going to be listening to this piece by piece. This is not going to be one that I'm going to finish in a week. It probably will take me a couple of weeks because I'm listening to it in between audiobooks. Like Holiday Country kind of like got on my nerves yesterday, so I paused it and I started listening to Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. Now, I have read this book before, but Jessica, if you're watching, Jessica is reading the last book that has been published, the 9th book, and every time we have patron sprints, she's been talking about her listen to it. And so one night I was like, I'm just, you know what, I'm gonna read them too because you've read them all, and so now I'm gonna read them too. And so I put Outlander on hold. It came in, and so now I'm listening to it. Like I said, I've read this. I know the content warnings. I know the issues with it. I understand all of that. It's just, you know, it's just going back through it. And I'm 7% into that one because I listened to a couple of hours of that. But that will be it, y'all. Let me know in the comments down below what you end up reading this week. Let me know if any of the titles that I mentioned are of interest to you. And I will be back with another one of these weekly wrap-ups soon. Bye.
We're the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars